All right. So we're diving deep into podcasts as learning tools today.
Okay.
And, we've got this whole stack of articles and research you all sent in.
Yeah,
Clearly, you're all looking beyond just entertainment here, right?
absolutely.
We're going to really unpack the benefits and how to actually make these podcasts work for your learning goals.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things about podcasts is they're not just some fad,
Right.
Like in 2023 alone, there were 2.4 million podcasts
Wow.
and over 60 million episodes.
That's a lot.
Huge leap from just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think it points to like a fundamental shift in how we are all consuming information.
Yeah, and it's not just the numbers, though, is it?
No.
These sources really dig into how our brains actually process audio information
Yeah.
and do it differently
It's totally different. Yeah.
than other ways of taking in information.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Like, we are bombarded with visual stuff
Constant.
all the time.
Yeah.
Our brains are almost numb to it. But audio, especially when it's someone talking,
Mm-hmm.
it forces us to engage different cognitive processes.
Interesting.
Much deeper level of engagement.
Okay.
And that can lead to better comprehension and even better retention.
So it's not just about me feeling more focused when I'm listening to something.
Right.
There's actual science behind why I might remember something better
Yeah.
from a podcast compared to like skimming an article.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so there's actual research on this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh.
One study found that students who listened to podcasts about a topic, they scored way higher on comprehension tests
Right.
than those who just read the material.
Wow.
And even more interesting is that the benefits were especially noticeable
Yeah.
for students who struggled with more traditional learning methods.
Gee, that's me.
Yeah.
I've always been more of an auditory learner, textbooks.
Yep.
Oh, they glaze over my eyes. But give me a good podcast and I'm set for hours.
That's a perfect example of how these podcasts can make learning so much more inclusive and accessible. All these sources really emphasize how beneficial they are for people who have visual impairments or learning differences like dyslexia.
Makes sense.
So the ability to adjust that playback speed using transcripts
Yeah.
and even using assistive listening devices
Yeah.
makes a huge difference.
It levels that playing field and lets everyone get that information in a way that works best for them.
Totally.
That's awesome.
It is, and this ties in with another key benefit that's highlighted in a lot of these sources,
Okay.
which is the power of storytelling.
Oh, interesting.
Podcasts often weave this information into these narratives,
Okay.
which makes it more engaging and even more memorable.
Like a story.
Yeah, think back to ancient times.
Right.
Knowledge was passed down through oral traditions.
Right.
And we're kind of tapping into that same, ability to connect with information that's presented in a narrative form.
It's more meaningful and it's more relatable.
Exactly.
Speaking of relatable, I noticed a bunch of sources talk about how podcasts can really help people feel like they're part of a community.
Yeah, it's such a crucial aspect.
Especially now, right?
Yeah, in this digital world.
Everything's so digital.
So many of these podcast creators are engaging directly with listeners' social media, Q&A segments,
Okay.
even live events.
That's cool.
It creates a sense of connection
Right.
and belonging, and that can be super motivating for learners.
Yeah, it's like having a study group
Yeah,
or a book club, but you can participate from anywhere.
exactly.
And on the topic of that global reach,
Yeah.
I was really struck by how many of these sources emphasize the flexibility of podcasts
It's amazing.
as a learning tool.
Absolutely. You can listen anytime, anywhere.
Yep.
During your commute, while you're exercising, while you're doing chores.
Yep.
It makes learning fit into our busy lives.
Right.
It doesn't require you to carve out special time
Right.
to study.
Like I'm sneaking in a little learning session
Exactly.
while I'm checking things off my to-do list.
There you go.
And honestly, it's way more enjoyable than staring at a textbook for hours
Totally.
or a screen.
Yeah.
And that flexibility also goes for the pace of learning.
Absolutely.
You can rewind, you can pause, you can re-listen to sections
As many times as you need
if I need to
to make sure you get it.
until I get it.
Yeah.
It's like having a personalized learning experience tailored to you.
Totally.
And speaking of personalization,
Okay.
several sources mentioned just the sheer variety of content available.
It's endless.
You can find podcasts on anything.
Anything, yeah.
Ancient history, quantum physics, personal finance.
It's one of the most exciting aspects.
Yeah.
You can delve into your passions.
Yeah.
Explore new interests, expand your knowledge base in ways that you might not get in more traditional environments.
It's like an endless buffet of knowledge, but it's curated to what I like.
There you go.
I like that. So speaking of curated, I was really interested in the sources that discussed using podcasts in more formal educational settings.
Yeah.
Like classrooms.
Yeah, this is where we start to see the potential of podcasts to revolutionize education.
Okay, tell me more about that. I'm really intrigued.
I will. Imagine a classroom where lectures are like supplemented or even replaced
Wow.
by engaging podcasts that the instructors curate.
Okay.
It frees up that class time for more interactive activities like discussions, debates, hands-on projects even.
It's like the flipped classroom model, but like taken to a whole new level.
Exactly.
Students are coming to class already understanding that material, so they can actually have like a much deeper engagement.
Precisely.
Okay, I like that.
It also allows for more personalized learning experiences.
Okay.
Because the students can listen at their own pace, revisit sections that were challenging, and explore even more materials that they're interested in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And one of the sources even talked about using student-created podcasts as like a form of assessment.
That's a fantastic application.
Yeah.
It lets the students really show what they understand,
Yeah.
but in a very creative and engaging way.
Right.
Imagine like a history class where students create podcasts that dramatize a historical event.
Oh, wow.
Or a science class where they explain like a really complex concept, but in a way that their peers can understand it.
That's really neat. So it's like project-based learning.
Totally.
But it also helps them build those communication skills.
For sure.
And digital literacy skills.
Absolutely.
And it goes even beyond the classroom.
Yeah.
Several sources were talking about using podcasts for corporate training and professional development.
Absolutely.
That's a really cool application.
Yeah, it's very cost-effective.
Okay.
Convenient way to give people training materials.
Yeah.
Keep employees up to date on trends. Foster a culture of like continuous learning in an organization.
It's like having a portable on-demand learning library that you can access anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, and it can be tailored to specific job roles or skill sets.
Right, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing.
Exactly.
You just listen to what you need.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about the benefits.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of dive into the best practices to make the most of this.
Yeah.
What really stood out to you from the research?
So one of the big takeaways for me was active listening.
Okay.
It's so tempting to just have podcasts on in the background while we're doing stuff.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
But to really get it,
you
have to be engaged.
So it's not enough to just have it on while I'm cooking dinner.
You might get some of it.
Okay.
But to really learn and retain it, you got to be intentional.
Okay.
Minimize those distractions, focus that attention, even take notes or pause to think about what you just heard.
So it's almost like treating it like a mini lecture or a chapter in a book.
Exactly.
And another best practice is to be strategic about what you listen to.
Right. Don't just jump on whatever's trending.
Right. With so many options out there, it's important to choose ones that actually work for you.
That makes sense.
So do your research, look at reviews, sample a few episodes.
Before you commit, right?
Exactly. And it's also helpful to think about the format and style of the podcast.
Okay.
Because some are very structured and informative, while others are more like, a chat.
So some are better for like deep dives.
Right.
And others are just for fun.
Exactly.
Okay.
And another key thing is the credibility of the podcast and the hosts.
Oh.
Are they experts in their field? Do they cite sources?
That's important.
Is the information balanced?
Yeah, it's like media literacy 101 for podcasts.
Exactly.
We have to be careful about what we're listening to.
Absolutely.
Even in a format that feels as personal as a podcast.
And one final best practice that's really important is to actually apply what you learn.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not enough to just listen.
You have to actually use it.
So if I'm listening to one about productivity,
yeah,
I should actually try out what they're saying.
Exactly.
Not just listen to it.
Or if you're listening to one about history, maybe do some more research on a topic you found interesting.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Or visit a museum.
Yeah, I like that.
It's about turning knowledge into action.
Right.
And making learning a part of your everyday life.
And speaking of daily lives, one of the sources talked about potential downsides.
Okay.
of relying too heavily on podcasts
Yeah.
for learning.
It's good to remember that podcasts are a great tool,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not a substitute for everything else.
Right.
So they're best as a supplement.
For reading and hands-on experiences.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
interacting with other people.
I could see how someone could get so into podcasts
Yeah.
that they forget to do other things.
It's also important to be mindful of echo chambers.
What do you mean?
If we only listen to things that we already agree with,
Okay.
we can end up with a really limited view.
Right, yeah.
And we close ourselves off.
To other perspectives.
Exactly.
So like with any media,
Yeah.
you got to be careful.
Absolutely.
And seek out different viewpoints.
And one final thing is distraction.
Okay.
While podcasts are great for learning while doing other things,
Yeah.
we have to pay attention to our focus.
Okay.
So if we're multitasking all the time while listening,
Mm-hmm.
we might not be actually learning.
So sometimes it's better to just sit down,
Yeah.
put the headphones on,
Give it your full attention.
and just focus.
Treat it like a good book
Okay.
or a really engaging conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about that balance.
Right.
Using podcasts in a way that enhances your life.
And doesn't distract from it.
Exactly.
Okay, so on that note, I think it's time to shift gears a little
Okay.
to a broader question.
Yeah.
What does this popularity of podcasts for learning
Yeah.
actually mean for the future of education?
Ooh, that's a big one. It's a question that's got a lot of experts talking, because
Yeah.
the accessibility and engagement factor is huge.
Yeah.
Some people are even saying this could democratize knowledge.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
One of the articles pointed out how traditional education can be so dependent on location.
Right.
You have to be there
You have to be there.
at a school or a university,
Yeah.
a training center.
Right.
But podcasts break down those barriers.
They totally do.
You know?
Yeah.
Suddenly anybody with an internet connection
Yeah.
can get world-class lectures,
Right.
expert interviews.
All different perspectives.
It's huge for people in rural communities.
Yeah. Or developing countries where access might be limited.
It levels the playing field,
It really does.
creates opportunities that weren't there before.
Exactly.
And it's not just formal education, is it?
No.
Several sources were talking about the rise of this lifelong learning
Yeah.
fueled by podcasts.
People are not limiting their learning to a specific time anymore.
Right.
They're always looking for something new,
Yeah.
skills, perspectives.
To improve their lives.
Yeah, to improve their lives and their work.
And podcasts are what's making them curious.
Podcasts are feeding that. Yeah.
It's like turning your commute or your workout
Yeah.
into a learning time.
Totally.
And it's not just about getting information.
No.
One article even talked about podcasts helping with mental well-being
Yeah, absolutely.
and personal growth.
There are so many podcasts now on mindfulness,
Yeah.
meditation, self-improvement, even therapy.
It's like having a little life coach in your pocket.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about stories.
Stories are powerful.
Several sources talked about how podcasts can connect us to different experiences,
Absolutely.
different perspectives,
Yeah, you can listen to interviews with people from all over the world,
Yeah.
from all walks of life.
and learn things you wouldn't find in any textbook.
Exactly. You're expanding your world just by listening.
And it's not just listening, right?
Yeah.
Podcast creators want people to get involved,
They do. They want you to talk about it.
discuss
Share your thoughts, connect with others.
on social media, in online groups,
It's creating a community.
which is so important these days.
It is. It's not just about taking it all in.
Right.
It's about connecting with other people who are learning too.
I like that.
Yeah.
That brings us to another thing about the future of education.
Okay. What's that?
This shift from passive learning to actually doing something.
Right. Podcasts aren't just about sitting there.
Right.
You can use them to do more.
Several sources talked about using podcasts to make you curious,
Yeah.
to get you thinking,
Thinking critically.
and to do creative projects.
Yeah, imagine students listening to a podcast about climate change.
Okay.
Then they have a debate about what to do about it.
Right.
Or even make their own podcasts about it.
It's about making students part of their learning,
Yeah, not just sitting there listening.
active participants,
Exactly, and that's such an important skill.
especially these days.
Yeah, we're living in a world that's always changing.
Yeah.
And being able to learn and adapt,
And think for yourself.
yeah, is more important than ever.
Podcasts can help us do that.
They're a powerful tool, yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that podcasts have become a really important part of learning.
They have. They're engaging, they're easy to access, and they can be used in so many ways.
And as technology gets better,
Yeah,
I think we're going to see even more amazing uses for them
absolutely.
in education and everywhere else.
Podcasts are more than just entertainment.
Right.
They're a tool for us to grow, to learn new things, even to change the world.
They can bring us together, inspire us, and help us all learn more.
Throughout our lives.
To all our listeners out there,
keep listening.
Be curious, choose wisely, and use what you learn to make a difference.
Make the world a better place.
Happy listening, everyone.